Welcome back to Business of Drinks. I'm Erica Ducey.
And I'm Scott Rosenbaum. Today we're joined by Theo Terris, CEO and co-founder of Uncle Arnie's.
Uncle Arnie's is one of the fastest growing THC and hemp-infused beverage brands in the U.S. It's built around full flavor teas, lemonades, sodas, and functional shots. These are approachable products that are designed to make cannabis feel familiar, social, and easy to understand.
Theo didn't come from beverage, cannabis, or even CPG. He came from ad tech, and that outside perspective shows up everywhere in how Uncle Arnie's has been built, from the brand's clarity and packaging to the way they think about educating consumers, to their focus on partnerships and distribution strategy.
And their growth story has been remarkable. Since launching in 2020, Uncle Arnie's has delivered roughly 100% year-over-year growth, scaling from about $400,000 in revenue in its first year to more than $25 million today, making it one of the largest THC beverage brands in California and a national player across both regulated cannabis and hemp markets.
I really enjoyed this conversation. Theo walks us through how Uncle Arnie's thinks about product architecture. They have a 2.5, 5, and 10 milligram formats, as well as different functional shots and cans. Some contain caffeine, others CBN, and other hemp and or THC derivatives. You can understand how that type of complexity necessitates that consumer education is first and foremost for a brand like this.
We also get into the operational realities of scaling in a heavily regulated category. They're tackling the development of hemp-derived and cannabis beverages depending on a market's legalities. Also, choosing distribution partners, merchandising in big box retail, etc. In some ways, it's even more complicated than the alcohol business.
So whether you are a drinks brand, a distributor, or an investor watching the nascent THC and functional beverage space, this episode offers a grounded look at what's actually working and what founders need to prioritize when growth, regulation, and opportunity collide.
Here's our conversation with Theo Terris of Uncle Arnie's.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
The best growth partners understand both sides of the equation, capital and commercialization.
And that's exactly what makes Intercontinental Beverage Capital different. They combine serious financial strategy with hands-on operational expertise, helping beverage brands thrive in today's complex markets.
One example we love, they worked with a fast-growing coconut water brand to reorganize its business model, map the resources needed to accelerate its trajectory, and secure critical operating capital. And that's just one of dozens of success stories.
So, whether it's investor preparation, retail execution, or building the roadmap between the two, Intercontinental Beverage Capital is in the cockpit with you every step of the way.
To learn more and set up a free consultation, visit inbevcapital.com. That's INBEV capital.com. And now, back to the show.
Theo, thank you so much for joining me on Business of Drinks. So glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me on.
All right, let's dive right into it. So you are CEO of Uncle Arnie's, and as I understand it, this is your first foray into beverage. If you can tell me just a little bit about your career prior to starting at Uncle Arnie's 5 years ago, I'd love to hear what that was like.
So prior to Uncle Arnie's, actually hadn't worked in beverage, hadn't worked in cannabis, hadn't worked in CPG. I had a video advertising business, a programmatic advertising business, so buying and selling ad space. I started that back in 2015, ended up selling that in about 2020, was already looking for my next big thing, and kind of coincidentally found myself in cannabis beverage. I'm with the same partners, so it's been 10 years that I've had the same partners, but it's never a dull day.
I'm sure. I'm curious, any particular lessons from this kind of other world, other career that have translated or influenced how you kind of are building this very different brand and the company today?
Yeah, totally. So I think everything is about the team and building the right company culture. And that was the same in my previous venture in ad tech. It's the same at Uncle Arnie's. I'm lucky to have business partners that I call friends. I'm lucky to have colleagues that I call friends. All of us are rowing in the same direction. We believe in the vision. We believe in the mission. We care so much about this category and about Uncle Arnie's. So I think one big lesson learned for this venture and for future ventures is to keep surrounding yourself with the best team, best partners.
And shout out to my former colleague, Mo Hassan, who is, I believe, on your team now.
Mo was working with us kind of part-time from April of this year, rebuilding the website, helping kind of advise us on the D2C side. And he joined us beginning of September. He's done a fantastic job building out our website e-commerce.
I'm curious, if you had to describe Uncle Arnie's in a sentence or two, tell us a little bit about the brand from that kind of 10,000 foot view.
Yeah. So I would say Uncle Arnie's is a fun, approachable cannabis beverage brand, and it's built around full flavor drinks, good vibes, and making cannabis just enjoyable and welcoming for everyone, as it should be.
And within the scheme of the brand, what's the product line like? What are the SKUs, kind of pricing? Give us kind of, and the listeners, a little idea in terms of what they can expect from the cans.
So first off, all of our drinks are very full flavored. They taste really, really good. For the first 4.5 years after inception, all of our drinks were non-carbonated, mostly teas and lemonades, very familiar flavors. So the first SKU we ever launched back in 2020 was an iced tea lemonade. Then it was a sweet peach iced tea, a smack and apple, pineapple punch. More recently, we've launched our raspberry lemonade, our strawberry lemonade. All of them just taste really, really good. This last year, we also dove into sodas as well. So we've kind of stayed away from the seltzers, the tonics out there, but yeah, just leaned really into non-carbonated and into sodas more recently. In terms of where we fit in from a price perspective, we pride ourselves on having very high quality products, but also being very affordable. So we don't want to scare any consumers away or potential consumers away from our price point.
And to that end, is the most popular SKU or product the iced tea lemonade, since that was kind of the originator, or have you seen things change over time?
So the iced tea lemonade is our OG flavor. It's still a top seller, both on the recreational side as well as on the hemp side of the business. If you look at the almost 20 SKUs that we have across the portfolio, there's actually not a wide range from the top seller to the worst selling drink, which makes a little bit of a challenge for our operations team to continue to produce so many SKUs. But right now, top sellers are our strawberry lemonade. That's been performing really well, which is low in sugar, low in calories as well. Our cherry limeade does exceptionally well in a bunch of the markets. And then for the shots, it's been our strawberry kiwi and a couple of our functional shots as well. So our sunrise orange, as well as our blueberry nightcap.
And tell me a little bit about the functional end. I understand that, most of the cans, when they started, are 10 milligram in terms of the THC. I know you recently launched or about to launch 2.5. Can you share a little bit about the reasoning behind where those sit at and how you're kind of evolving or developing new products along those lines?
So just on the functionality, right now, the only functional drinks that we have are on the shot side. So we've got our sunrise orange that has caffeine in it. So that's kind of our energy shot. We've got our blueberry nightcap. Again, that's a shot that has CBN in it. So it helps calm you down. That's kind of the nighttime. We've launched a couple newer shots as well, a lemon mint shot that has CBG and another one with CBD. So that's been on the functional side. And then in terms of the 2.5 versus the 5s versus the 10s, that's a combination of some markets having caps. So for instance, in Connecticut, there's a 3 milligram cap. So we've got 2.5 and 3 milligram drinks to service that market. In other states like Minnesota, there's a 10 milligram cap. And then some people like something in between that's a little bit more sessionable. So that's where the 5 milligram seems to fit in.
One thing that I really personally enjoy about the brand is, for someone who can't wrestle with all the acronyms or various details about like geeking out, I look at a can and it tells me how long I should expect to feel some effect. Did that aspect of the brand, of the design, exist from day one? Is that something you all learned about? Because it's not something I'm used to seeing. I'm used to seeing kind of, here are all the ingredients and you kind of have to figure it out on your own when it comes to non-alc, but functional or THC. And I'm curious, that little kind of hint of here's how long you might expect to wait until you feel a certain way is kind of truly innovative to me.
Yeah. So for us, again, we've been at this for almost 6 years at this point. When we entered California back in the beginning of 2020, cannabis beverage was only about 0.1% of the overall market. And that's on the recreational side, selling in dispensaries. Today, that's grown on the dispensary side to about 1.5 or 2%. So it's still not a large category. It's growing a lot faster on the hemp side. But when we entered, we needed to educate the buyers. We need to educate the bud tenders. We need to educate potential consumers because most people just hadn't tried a cannabis beverage before. So we've prided ourselves on leaning into education. As far as I know, we're the only cannabis beverage company with a dedicated education team within the company that's educating our own staff, that's educating our distribution partners, that's educating our retailers and the end consumers. So to your point, it's been critical for us to, on the packaging, say that there's a 20 to 40 minute onset time. Some people feel it a little bit quicker when I have a beverage. Sometimes I feel it after 5 minutes, after 10 minutes. Other people feel it a little bit longer than that, 40 minutes. But definitely education has been an integral part of the business from day one.
And I'm curious in terms of just accessibility of the brand and understanding it, a lot of functional and or THC or cannabis brands lean into the kind of pastel, very minimalistic color palette and branding. And Uncle Arnie's is just fun, vibrant colors. There's a little bit of hippie, a little bit of like even just the some of the website and the emails that I see have, older people on them with gray hair. And I'm curious about how you're learning about your consumer and leaning into what is very kind of contrarian, out there in the market.
So we've tried to be different from day one, and we've tried to really lean into the fun in cannabis, make sure that it's approachable, make sure that it's accessible, make sure that when you see an Uncle Arnie's beverage, you know exactly what you're getting. To your point, there's a lot of brands out there that have kind of that same look, the same feel, the same ingredients. You really can't differentiate one brand from another. We want someone to walk into a dispensary. We want someone to walk into a wine or liquor store, a bar, restaurant, and see our packaging, see our brand, and know exactly what they're buying. And right now, it's a sea of brands out there. I mean, Scott, there's probably, I think the last time I looked a few weeks ago, over 1,000 THC beverage companies on the market. It's hard to differentiate yourselves from that sea of brands. So we've leaned into cannabis, we've leaned into the fun, we've tried to make it familiar, we've tried to make it flavorful so consumers know exactly what they're getting, that it's consistent, that they're educated, or that we can help educate them if they're a new consumer into the category.
And now, a word from our sponsor. If you're building a beverage brand in the US, you already know logistics, compliance, accounting, and distribution management can eat up your entire week. That's where MHW comes in. They're a licensed importer, distributor, and full back office partner across all 50 states. They handle the minutia so you can focus on building your brand. Whether you're launching your first product or scaling fast, they make the complex simple. Learn more at mhwltd.com. And now, back to the show.
Let's talk a little bit about numbers and brass tacks. So Uncle Arnie's is one of the fastest growing THC and hemp infused beverage brands in the US. If I'm not mistaken, it's, I think, the largest in California, which certainly gives it an advantage. How big is it? Can you share any numbers or context to help me understand what a big and fast growing THC and cannabis hemp infused beverage is like?
Yeah, totally. So let me start off by saying that as I see it today, the market is not some multi-billion-dollar category at the moment. Do I think it can get there? Do I think it can be 5, 10, 15% of what the overall alcohol category is? Yes, but it's going to take time. It's going to take proper regulations. In terms of our growth, we launched the company about 5.5 years ago at this point. We've grown pretty much 100% or more year over year. The first year, 2020, we did $400K in revenue. Brand sales for this year should surpass the $25 million. So we're definitely growing at a fast clip. And we don't plan on slowing down anytime soon, pending all the crazy regulatory hurdles that that we face on a daily basis.
Yeah, we'll touch on that. I'm curious, with that massive amount of growth that a lot of other founders and leaders would kind of envy, what are some of the pain points, right? The unexpecteds when you're growing that quickly?
I would say everything is about finding the right partners, and that doesn't happen overnight. So for us, we focused on California for the first 3 or 4 years after inception. California on the recreational side, and in general, it's the largest cannabis market. It's the most competitive cannabis market, and it's where brands are born. So we wanted to put all of our time, money, and energy into California before even looking at any other state. So when it comes to finding partners, we've been working with the same supply partners on the canning side, on the bottling side, on the emulsion side, on the flavor house side for the last 5 or 6 years. The same when it comes to distribution, the same when it comes to manufacturing. We haven't necessarily moved at the same pace as every other hemp or THC beverage company out there, but we make sure that we're doing our best to find the best partners that we think we can scale with, not for 6 months, not for a year, but for a long period of time.
Sure. From a distribution point of view, when it comes to partnership, how are you thinking about allocating resources to certain types of distributors? Do you look for a distributor that is traditionally focused on beer, one that's more wine and spirits? How are you kind of selecting your distribution partners?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think we don't look at things so black and white. So for us, it's not, we want to go only with beer distributors, or we want to go only with wine and spirits distributors. What we do when we enter a market is first, myself, my business partners, high management, we go physically and visit that market. So for instance, before we got into hemp, all of us went to Minnesota, which is the mecca of hemp beverage, and met with a ton of manufacturers. We went to probably 12 or 15 different manufacturers before we settled on one specific manufacturer, because they had the best in class team, because they've had the best in class facility. Those are the guys over at Surly Brewery, if you're familiar with them. We did the same on the distribution side. We met with a handful of different distributors, and we wanted to present ourselves, as individuals. We wanted to present the brand. We wanted to hear from their perspective, how they saw the market, how they were leaning into the category, what their belief was about the category as to where things were going. We'd also speak with a number of other brands, both THC brands that were already in that portfolio or those specific portfolios, as well as maybe non-THC brands as well, to see how those distribution networks were performing. So I think for us, it was more about finding, again, the right partners that believed in us, that believed in the category, that would want to work with us for the long term. In some cases, that has been the AB network, the Anheuser-Busch distribution network. In some cases, that's been the Molson network. In some cases, that's been the Johnson Brothers. And in other cases, it's been smaller, mid-sized craft beer distros. It really depends on the state. It depends on the regulations in that state. It depends on whether we think we have a product market fit for that matter. Some states we've gone into and we say, oh, wow, this is going to be an uphill battle, or maybe we haven't found the right distribution partner that we think believes in Uncle Arnie's or in the category enough to even enter that market. So I think it's being just really making sure that we find the right partners in every state that we go into.
Sure. Understandable. I want to share a little anecdote and kind of get your reaction and your thoughts on this, which is I first encountered the brand in New Jersey in what I would call a big box retailer. And I was with my brother-in-law who was from Europe and wanted to see what a THC or hemp infused brand was like. Called the store and asked if they had any brands, and they said yes. And we went to the store. And, me being curious, said, I'll go find it. I don't need to ask for help, right? I don't need directions. And looked around and could not find the section that had THC or hemp infused beverages. And then finally I found a pallet near the front of the store, unlabeled, with, a bunch of brands, including Uncle Arnie's, but, no signpost, no direction. And it really felt like Wild West. And I'm curious, how you think about where the category sits in the broader realm of beverage, where you'd like to see it exist, what aisle, and what you're learning about kind of merchandising as you expand your geographic footprint.
Yeah. So the experience that you and your brother-in-law had in New Jersey is an experience that I've had hundreds, if not thousands of times, unfortunately, where I walk into a wine and liquor store and I walk into a C store and I'm looking for even our own brand that I know Uncle Arnie's is being sold in that wine and liquor store or that store in general. And it's taken me a number of minutes to go and find that specific section. And I think in the case of New Jersey, I don't know when this was, but about a year ago, there was only one distributor that was servicing the entire state. They were an awesome partner of ours, and they really got us from zero to, thousands of cases a month. So got to give everything to them. But in New Jersey and in a bunch of other states, there aren't full on regulations in place at the moment. So there's no 3 or 5 or 10 milligram cap. Retailers have bought into the category. Distributors have now bought into the category. But that doesn't mean that they know much about the category. They haven't been educated around the category. They don't know how to merchandise it in their store, whether that's in one small section of a refrigerator, whether that's in the back store. I've seen it even in the icebox section where you have to literally open go to the back of the store and open the door to go into the freezer to go find hemp beverages. So it's definitely been a challenge that we're facing and that the category is facing. I think as markets have matured, as markets have established regulations, we've seen especially the big box retailers doing a much better job merchandising in their stores. If you go into a Total Wine, for instance, they've got everything clearly labeled. They've got end caps. It's really clear where the THC section is versus spirits versus, other categories. I think for smaller independents, it's still been a struggle and they need to constantly be educated. One thing that we've done as a brand, and one thing that we were lacking really until over the summer, until July of this past year, was bring on a proper CMO. So we hired a guy named Brian Mashevsky. He used to be, CMO over at Sweetwater that sold the Tilray. More recently had a stint over at Ascend and at High Rise. He's come in and just done a fantastic job from a merchandising standpoint, from an educational standpoint. That's something that we're really going to be leaning into in 2026, that you go into a store, you're not just going to see Uncle Arnie's, but you're going to see a section that is clearly labeled THC. That's something that we're also working closely with our distribution partners as well to make sure that, consumers are walking into the store and they know exactly where the THC section is, or most consumers haven't even tried a THC beverage still to this point. So at least opening their eye to the category. So I think with time, retailers will get better, distributors will get better, brands will get better at merchandising. It just doesn't happen overnight. But unfortunately, I've been in your shoes a number of times.
And now a word from our sponsor. If you're building a drinks brand right now, you've probably realized something uncomfortable. There is no playbook anymore. Looking good isn't enough, a clever tagline won't save you, and copying what worked 5 years ago, that won't move the needle. That's exactly why Nihilo Agency created the 2026 New Rules Report. It breaks down how the most effective beverage brands are actually building today, across alcohol, non-alc, and everything in between. If you want clarity on how brand really drives growth right now, go to newrulesbev.com/report to download your copy. And now, back to the show.
You mentioned a few times now, and I think it's apt that we kind of speak to, relatively recent legislative changes, right? There was the kind of closing of the proverbial loophole of the 2018 Farm Bill that has allowed, right, for the sale of hemp-derived THC products like Uncle Arnie's. I'm curious your reaction to that change, and then we'll get into some of the particulars.
Yeah, totally. So I think just like most other brands and operators out there, it was a little bit of a shock. We knew this was a risk, and this has been brought up for the last year and a half, first with that Mary Miller amendment. I think it was in the summer of 2024. Mitch McConnell also tried to do something very similar over this past summer that didn't go through the House, didn't go through the Senate. Definitely disappointing, but the way that it was done, where the government had been shut down for 40 or 45 days, 42 million Americans weren't getting their food stamps. There were 3,000 or 4,000 flights that were canceled. People working for the government hadn't gotten a paycheck for the last month and a half. And Mitch McConnell and Andy Harris managed to slip this language in, knowing that there was so much pressure to open the government. And for being honest, this wasn't priority number 1 or 2 or 3 are probably in the top 10 for most, or 50 for most Americans. So definitely disappointing that the way that it went down, slipping this into the spending bill. However, the industry has really, over the last week, 2 weeks, since everything went down, has really rallied together. I actually have a call right after this with a lot of large wholesalers, retailers, brands that seem to be uniting. I'm optimistic that, again, this isn't going to happen over the next month or 3 months or probably 6 months, but I think this is all happening for a reason. And I think that there's a strong possibility that within the next year, cannabis beverage or THC beverage will be federally legal. So yes, in the short run, this was a bit of a shock. In the long run, I think this category could be bigger than anything I ever imagined. So I'm hopeful, and we're going to be staying close to the topic until it's resolved.
So what does that mean as the CEO of a company such as Uncle Arnie's? What does that mean now in terms of how your day to day has changed, right? Folks in, say, wine aren't necessarily worried about an immediately pending prohibition in their day to day. They can focus on marketing and sales and production. How has your day to day changed since the news?
Yeah. So as of now, and again, it's only been about a week and a half. So we're still gathering all the facts. But the first thing that we did after finding out this news was set up meetings with all of our large distribution partners, set up meetings with our co-packers, set up meetings with the large retailers that we're in, and get an understanding of where they're at, because they're the ones distributing the product. They're the ones selling the product. And we've actually heard really good feedback from just about all of our distributors, if not all of the distributors, that it's business as usual. They're going to continue to lean into the category. They're going to continue to sell Uncle Arnie's and other THC beverages. They're going to keep fighting both at their state level, if state regs aren't in place, at the federal level as well, and make sure that this category is fixed. We've heard the same from larger retailers. It's kind of ironic, but since the news, we actually launched in Circle K. We launched in Binny's, which is the largest liquor store in Illinois. We launched in Lowe's Foods, which is one of the larger chain stores in the Carolinas. And we just got approval today in Florida for Cumberland Farms. So I don't think we've actually had that much success opening large retailers as we've had in the last week or week and a half. So I'm cautiously optimistic that things will work itself out. As of now, we haven't completely, we're trying not to panic. We're trying not to make any impulsive moves. I am going to be meeting over the next few weeks with my senior leadership team. We're going to be going through the strategy of what 2026 looks like, making sure that we're in a strong position no matter what happens with the regulations in 2026. Thankfully, we just did come off of our Series A, so we're in a healthy financial spot, and we're not going to lose this business, unfortunately. Or we've been in challenging times as a business before, and we definitely don't want to put ourselves in that spot again.
Sure. Let's talk about and congratulations on closing your Series A. You closed a 7.5 million Series A that was co-led by Mindset Capital and Delta Emerald Ventures in participation with strategic investor Harry Rubin, who was a founding partner of Boston Beer Company. Tell me a little bit about that process and raising that Series A. How is it different from raising your seed round? And yeah, I'm curious to know.
As you mentioned, Mindset Capital, Delta Emerald, Harry Rubin, and a couple other folks came into the round. All of those guys were actually existing investors in the company. Mindset, Delta Emerald, and Harry Rubin. Harry Rubin and his partners were kind of our first strategic round of funding about 2.5, almost 3 years ago at this point. And they've been true mentors to myself and my business partners. And then more recently with Mindset and with Delta Emerald, we've been the kind of company that tries to put together realistic projections and P&L and over deliver on them. And I think we've been fortunate to build a really good team, have a really good product, come out with a great brand. And we've seen the business, as we touched on a little bit earlier, grow nicely year over year. This was kind of an opportunistic raise where we weren't actually looking to do a proper Series A, but just the growth that we've had over the last couple of years, we saw the opportunity to raise our Series A and to continue to grow the business, continue to build out our sales team, our marketing team, expand into additional states. And it sort of happened organically where Aaron Edelheit, who's a close friend of mine at this point and real mentor to the company, Ian Dominguez from Delta Emerald, Harry Rubin. We all kind of just came together, myself and my business partners, and worked out the deals of the term. It happened over the course of 2 or 3 months. So felt like a lot longer of a process than it really was, but wrapped up the deal the middle of August of this year and kind of continued to hit the gas pedal.
You mentioned the mentorship aspect. I'm curious if you can share an example or examples of how any of your investors have helped Uncle Arnie's beyond the infusion of capital.
If we take it to Harry Rubin and his group, when they first invested just about 3 years ago, I think we thought we were a lot more buttoned up on the corporate side than we were from a data room perspective, from a financial perspective. And this was really more my business partner, Alberto, working really closely with Harry, but putting together proper P&L, cash flow, balance sheet, making sure that we had a model that we could work off of. And that same model that Harry and Alberto put together 3 years ago is the same model that we use today. And I think if we look at how we raised this last round over the past summer, in large part, the reason that the deal came together so quickly is because we were fully buttoned up. So Harry's been a huge mentor in that front, as well as a lot of other fronts. And then I'd say with Aaron, I give him all the credit in the world that he raised the flag about everything that unfortunately happened on the federal level with Mitch McConnell and Andy Harris over the last couple of weeks. And I think we neglected it. Myself, my business partners, we've never been so much involved with various associations, whether it's the Hemp Beverage Alliance, whether it's CABA, which is the Coalition for Adult Beverage Alternatives, whether it's the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, whether it's certain lobbying efforts. And he was the one that really kind of saw this coming and made a lot of noise that we should be getting more involved with various associations, with various lobbyists at different states. And he was right. And I'll give him all the credit for that. And over the last 2 weeks, really since all of this went down, unfortunately or fortunately, a lot of my time has been spent on the phone with lobbyists. I was just on a call last night with our lobbyists in Ohio, earlier this week with our lobbyists in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Right after this call, I'd be jumping on another call with various associations. So I think the fact that we've gotten more kind of involved with these various associations is definitely helping us.
Incredible. I'd like to switch gears, move into what we call lightning round. So these are kind of quick questions, or in this case, fill in the blank. I'll read you a phrase or whatnot, and I'm curious if you could fill in the blank and then maybe just expound a little bit about why you chose the word or phrase or answer you did. So the first one is new brands tend to overestimate how important blank is.
It's something that we touched on earlier, but I would say how important partners are, both partners within the company, having strong business partners, as well as externally as well, whether that's with your suppliers, your manufacturers, your distributors, marketing agencies, whoever it may be. I think a lot of brands are so focused on just themselves and just coming out with the perfect product or the perfect design, but they haven't necessarily put value into building a strong foundation with your own partners and with external partners. So I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on having is just really good relationships with all of our manufacturing partners so that when shit hits the fan and something bad happens, we can amicably resolve it. And that has happened and it will continue to happen pretty much every month. And the same on the distribution side when there's a challenge. So I think people overestimate or underestimate how important strong partners are.
All right. Next up, the hardest thing about my job is blank.
For me, that would be prioritization. I'd say, and we've touched on some of it in this call, but there's a lot going on in the business right now. We're operating both on the recreational side, we're operating on the hemp side of the business. We've come out with new product SKUs. We've grown immensely over the last year and a half. I think we had something like 18 or 19 full-time employees this same time last year. We just crossed over the 60 employee mark. We're constantly expanding into new markets. We're constantly opening new distribution and retail partnerships. So I think for me, it's just prioritizing the right things to make sure that and we're keeping the lights on and we're keeping focused.
Curious if we could delve into that just a little. If we turn back the clock a year ago, what were you prioritizing? And then what are you prioritizing today? What's changed?
I think the biggest thing that changed between 2024 and 2025, and it may very well change again in 2026, depending on our strategic meetings over the next couple of weeks, is in 2024, the focus was just launching into hemp. And we only entered into 3 markets the first year. So into Minnesota, into New Jersey, and into Ohio, versus this year, we've opened about 12 or 13 or 14 markets. I think the biggest change was, focusing on just these core markets and proving ourselves in tough, competitive, saturated markets and making sure that we could succeed, versus this year expanding more aggressively into a lot of markets and still making sure that we could succeed in as many of those markets as possible.
Sure. All right. Last fill in the blank. The most surprising thing I've learned during my tenure as CEO of Uncle Arnie's is blank.
I would say that things never get easier. Just when I think things never get easier. I don't know how else to explain it. Just when you think you've cracked something or you have a new product, someone else copies your product. When you sell a ton of units in a specific state, the regulations suddenly change on you and you're back to square one, both at the state level or the federal level. So I think things never get easier.
Sure. I'm curious, given the tremendous success you've already had with the brand and how large it is this something you'd envision getting to at this state? Or are you already past where you thought this could go?
I think when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you jump into something not knowing what to expect. So I think when I jumped headfirst into cannabis beverage, I didn't know if this would be a venture that I would be with for a year, 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years. What I can tell you is that even with this crazy news at the federal level, I've never been more excited, not just about the category as a whole, but about Uncle Arnie's and where things are going to go. So I could easily see myself being here for, another 5, 10, 15 years. This is not something that we're trying to get rid of anytime soon.
And to that end, where would you like to imagine Uncle Arnie's is 5 years from now?
Ideally, 1 year from now, or within the next year, things are federally legal, meaning that we'll be able to sell Uncle Arnie's in all 50 states. I do think that that's feasible. I do think that that can happen. If we fast forward 5 years, I hope to be in every large retail outlet in the country, whether that's Costco, Whole Foods, Walmart, Target, Circle K. We're already in a couple of those. We're soon to be in some of those. So again, all 50 states, all large format, big box retailers, hopefully in, tens of thousands of points of sale. That's where we're aiming to be.
Amazing. So just a few final questions to wrap things up about how you do your job, how you think about your job. I'm curious, day to day, do you use AI as the CEO of a beverage company? And if so, how do you use it?
Yeah, I use AI constantly, whether that's answering emails, whether that's on the new product development side, whether that's on competitive analysis, whether that's on looking at adjacent categories that aren't THC beverages, but constantly using AI on a almost minute by minute or hourly basis.
Got it. And when it comes to data, where does the company turn? Do you use any free or public sources? Are you just using in-house proprietary data? Are you subscribing to any data like Nielsen? How are you thinking about data as a company?
Yes, we've always been pretty data-driven from 2020 till now. On the recreational side of the business, we've used Headset for data very closely. We've also used Pistol data. One has been more for the sales team, that's Pistol data. One has been more for our marketing team, that's more Headset. On the hemp side, yeah, you just mentioned Nielsen. Nielsen just got into the category a couple months ago. We had a look at the data maybe a month or 2 months ago, and it wasn't totally accurate. I think they're only collecting the data from a couple states, a couple retailers at the moment. I do think in the next 6 to 12 months, there's going to be a lot more reliable data out there. We have also hired somebody internally that's doing sales ops. She's done it before at large alcohol companies over the last couple of years as well. So we're collecting as much data as we possibly can from our retailers, from our distributors. We also have the D2C side of the business. You mentioned Mo Hassan earlier in the call. So we have first-party data on anyone that's buying directly from UncleArnies.com as well.
Curious about your consumer. Typically brands think about them in terms of archetypes or certain demos or characteristics. Is there any kind of driving force behind who Uncle Arnie's core consumer is?
I wish I could give you a straight answer to that question and say, because there's a lot of brands out there that have that, they know exactly who their consumer is, whether that's females between the age of 35 and 55 with an income of more than $75,000 or $80,000. Unfortunately, I can't tell you, or I can't pinpoint exactly who that consumer is. The consumer is a little bit different on the recreational side of the business versus the hemp side of the business. I can tell you that, and this is more anecdotal, but from the data that we have on the D2C side, it is pretty much a 50-50 split between men and women. We are also seeing a wide range from young female and male consumers, 21 to 30, but we're also seeing that older demographic as well. But as a category, and this is some of the data that I've looked at more recently across some of the larger retailers out there, that one of the fastest growing demographics is that millennial male between 35 to 45 that are kind of switching over from beer or having a little bit less beer on a daily basis to turning to THC beverages as well.
There you go. The data perfectly encapsulates my own personal behavior. So wrapping things up, as a drinks entrepreneur who really dove into the deep end, not coming from this industry, I'm curious if someone came up to you today and said, I want to start some type of beverage brand. I'm curious if there was anything or any person or course or book or website that you'd recommend to provide insight to them on their journey that you found useful along the way.
First off, I would say, if you're looking to get into this category, be ready for a roller coaster. This category is not for anyone and everyone. It's a very challenging on the recreational side, on the hemp side. In terms of a specific person to speak with, I don't know. I can't think of anyone specifically. In terms of like a movie, maybe, and I think this analogy is a good one. A movie that I try to watch maybe once a year, once every other year, is The Pursuit of Happiness with Chris Gardner. And I think not that we've been through that journey. He went through a much tougher journey in life to where he was and where he got to. But you need to have persistence and perseverance and grit in order to succeed in this industry. So I think that's the closest analogy I can come up with right now.
Well, thank you, Theo. So appreciate you coming on and spending time with us, particularly during this busy O&D, this busy legislative season, everything that's going on. Congratulations on all the growth and look forward to seeing where you continue to take things.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate the time. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us on Business of Drinks. Subscribe on YouTube at Business of Drinks Podcast. Follow us on Spotify or listen in on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. Please tap the notification button so you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops.
And help us spread the word. Click those star ratings, give us a review, and share episodes or clips on your socials. It really helps us reach new listeners.
Finally, if there's something that you'd like us to cover on the podcast, tell us. We're at podcast@businessofdrinks.com or reach out via Instagram or LinkedIn.
We love hearing from you and we respond to each and every message. Thanks and see you next time.